About connected retail, we're talking about what today is currently a trend happening across the world. Even in many of the developed retail countries, we still have it happening. So to that extent, to believe that it'll happen in India almost immediately, I think might be too ambitious a thought. We must remember that when we look at these trends, we have to evaluate these trends in the context of where we are as a country. And here we are as a country where modern retail is still in single digits as a proportion of the total retail market in this country. Even if you go by what Sachin mentioned in the previous panel discussion, online retail is still less than 1% of total retail in this country. So to believe that we will actually get all retailers in this country to practice connected retail tomorrow, I think, might be extremely ambitious. The second is that we must also remember that we do have a lot of people migrating across. There is urban migration and there is rural migration. And when I talk about urban migration, it's about people moving from, say, Nagpur to Mumbai or Cochin to Bangalore. There's rural migration from the villages of India, and roughly about 15 million people are estimated to move every year from villages to towns. So when you really look at urban and rural migration, one of the big challenges that if we were to put ourselves in the shoes of a customer is that where do I buy something? And one of the most important things, and I think Mohit mentioned that earlier, was about being able to look at digital technologies, currently the internet, to understand if I wanted to buy provisions for the house, who's my closest retailer, GeoSearch. If I wanted to buy a specific category, let's say for example apparel, then where is the nearest lifestyle store or a shopper stop, since both of them are on the panel. Then obviously there's an opportunity again to search. So there is information, which is a second aspect of connected retail, which happens to us unconsciously every day. Third is that what we are seeing, and certainly when the young country like ours, is that there are an increasing number of what we might define as digital natives. So even today, the earlier days when you have a baby in the house, then typically the mother or the maid is, hard-pressed to figure out what kind of entertainment do you provide to the baby such that you can feed the baby. But today, one of the things that they are able to do is either switch on a television or sometimes, have put something onto a computer screen or onto an iPad, which kind of keeps the baby captivated. And so today's babies are used to actually moving screens with their hands as opposed to really using a remote to change from channel to channel. So we are as a country actually evolving in terms of digital nativity. And that is another thing that we need to remember. So the ability for us as consumers and customers to be able to quickly move from one phase of digital technologies to the next phase of digital technologies is again pretty good. The other aspect is that with the advent of modern retail, we managed to be able to elicit terabytes of data from our customers. We know exactly a customer bought X brand, Y pack size in Z store in a particular town. And we can collate a lot of that data. And using that data, we've got volumes of data which a lot of us as modern retailers don't even know what to do with. Sometimes we overlay on top of that what we call as a loyalty program. So we can actually identify a customer by name or by a telephone number. And because we've identified a customer by name or by telephone number, we can actually create some more richness out of the data that we have collected on the transaction. And thereby, when you reflect on some of those presentations made by BCG and A.T. Kearney and even Google at Work, what we are talking about is that we've got reams of information, and how do we use these reams of information to be able to create a closer and a better connect with our customers. But at the end of it, we must all reflect on one thing, which is that we are in the business of selling. For us, it is important to make sure that we have a sale. At one stage, the era of retail was such that manufacturers would sell directly to customers, and thereby it became the manufacturers' era, where retailers really had no power. Then at another stage, we had retailers really wielding the power because of the fact that they were a significant intermediary between manufacturers and brands and customers. But today, in an omni-channel world, what we are seeing is that the customer is wielding power. So when we talk about Rakesh asking Sachin, saying that you're selling only on the basis of price, what we do discover is that the customer is wielding power, the customer has choice. And the customer is able to decide where he or she will buy from based on, in some cases, on the basis of price, some cases on the basis of selection, some cases in terms of variety or brand, and sometimes it's purely because of the experience that they provide. But ultimately, when we reflect on all of this, the fact quintessentially remains that all of us are attempting to make a sale. And in attempting to make that sale, when we have a customer who's one digitally native, when you have a customer who's always on, as you might define, where they can come into a store and figure out what the price online is, or they are shopping online and they can figure out where the closest store is, or if they can actually look into your physical store and figure out where variety or where the availability is. There are several ways in which customers can interact with the store, interact with brands, and interact with both offline and online seamlessly. And in that era of where the customer wields power, I think the challenge for all of us is to be able to figure out how do we connect with that customer, and making sure that in a connection with a customer, we're able to deliver on a superior customer experience and hopefully in that process conclude a sale. So what I've got here on the dais with me is a panel which has got a good blend of offline retailers, online retailers, and also an online distribution player. So since we might get caught up in the noise in the midst of the discussion, let me first request Sahil. And Sahil heads Just Buy Live. And Just Buy Live started, I think now 60 days back, Sahil, operationally. Went live 60 days back. And Sahil follows a very interesting model. And what I'd request Sahil to do is to be able to figure out how he's been able to connect with his customers, and he'll define his customers for you. But if you could just spend maybe half a minute to define your business model and explain to us how you've managed to really take connectivity to an extent where you have now bridged the last mile in distribution. I think we can't hear you clearly.
Is the mic?
You want to use, yeah, just check.
I'll just use this one. Check. Is this one okay? Yeah?
Yeah, it's not much more than the panel. Yeah.
Our model is what I call e-distribution. It's a model that hasn't been tried before in India. So traditional distribution, connecting brands to India's mom and pop retail. So I want to be clear that we're addressing India's mom and pops, entrepreneur-owned retailers on the streets of India. So we are attempting to connect brands to retailers directly by disintermediating distribution to some extent, but using technology. And I want to stress at the outset that technology is nothing more in this business than an enabler and a medium. It's not the end game. I think some of the earlier discussions this morning were focused on a very if or but situation. It's either technology or it's either offline. I don't believe that's accurate. I think the most effective companies are able to use technology effectively to enable a larger offline or brick and mortar business. So that's what we're attempting to do. Distribution entails three things: communication, logistics, and financial services to the retailer. All we're doing is digitizing those services to make it more efficient. So nobody has actually attempted to aggregate distribution on a large scale in India. Maybe they have a few years ago, but technology was not as advanced at that time. Now through a simple mobile application, you can, these mobile applications are simple because retailers are already using them. People were on the misconception that India's Aam Dukandar not a very developed person, not tech savvy. But that's not true, because they're normal business people. They're already using their phones to consume news, book airline tickets, and other mobile services. So I thought, why not allow them to conduct business on their phone as well, from the supply side? So they're already engaging with e-tail on the selling side. So they have now many alternatives to sell, not only to their walk-in customers, but also through, as mentioned earlier, through online platforms that become a seller on these, which some of our previous panelists found not to be very effective, but it's an alternate means all the same. Why not now give them an alternative way to buy as well, which could potentially be, it's very early days for us, but which could potentially be very effective. So imagine today they have to deal with multiple suppliers, multiple distributors of various brands. Credit lines are subjective, reliant on the relationship they have with their supplier. We're aggregating that into one application where a retailer now can avail and visualize all brands, all offers directly from every brand, and make a democratic choice. So in this case, it couldn't be more apt, this panel, which actually we're using technology and connectivity to actually democratize retail, but for the mom and pops.
Thanks, Sahil. Rakesh, you've got a similar model which you've tried with KB FairPrice, where you actually took the distribution model all the way to retailers and then from retailers to consumers. Could you elaborate on how you've used, connected technologies to be able to deliver that?
No, I think, KB's FairPrice is more of a convenience store model, and we currently are running both a combined company-operated stores as well as franchise, more focused in urban poor, right? And just in 3 cities right now, Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore, and very, very focused. We're really not trading with, with another set of retailers. We kind of focus on there, but I think another model that we have been using technology and, kind of using the entrepreneurial spirit that exists in India is the Big Bazaar Direct model, which is what we call as an, assisted e-commerce kind of platform. And we've been piloting that in Rajasthan for a little more than a year now. And there it's about, really having a tab-based selling platform where you have this person who's sort of kind of an expert on the product itself, guides the people, gets the selection done, also acts like a kind of the proxy cash agent in between, and allows for an e-commerce transaction to happen. And typically the products that are covered in that kind of thing are products which are not possible to be available in that area. So it's very difficult, as we were saying earlier, about 600, 700 SKUs is what the rural part of the country really consumes. So it's not about those SKUs, but then there are times when there's a need for the extended assortment. And those are the selective assortments that we offer. So let's say in case of winters, we would look at, kind of quilts and blankets and things like that. And they would be on offer there. Now, because the whole process of completing the transaction in that part is not the easiest, and also managing the logistics. So what you're doing is you're using the franchise model and the franchise partner to complete the transaction. So I think these are sort of, as the technology has been evolving, what are the ideas that you can do which could be relevant to India? These are some of the thoughts that we've been executing, and I'm sure there will be many more such thoughts which will come in. It's a different country. It has its own set of challenges, and I think technology can definitely enable a lot more commerce to happen. Which form, how, I think time will keep evolving on that.
Great. Thanks, Rakesh. Govind, you've got a, department store business, plus, of course, you've got the hypermarket business. And when you look at the department store business, one of the challenges that we are seeing with the department store business is the fact that many of these brands are available online.
Yeah.
But these brands, when available online, are shorn of the experience that you would typically get within the store.
Sure.
So have you been able to use technology to be able to build on the experience that the customer has if he or she were to walk into the store, beyond the fact that it is available as a product?
Sure. So I think we are working on multiple aspects of this whole experience, and the bit of experience that we heard about, one of the big questions that keeps on being asked to me is, what is this omni, Why are we talking omni? What is it all about omni thing? And I have actually 2 simple answers for that, for people who actually have not able to understand or grasp what omni is all about. All of you would have heard this song from Mera Saya, Tu Jahan Jahan Chalega, Mera Saya Saath Hoga. I think we have replaced the word Saya with Google, and you have the digital footprint being created. And the other part is what KB keeps on referring to, mythology. Who's the guy on behalf of God who tracks all of us all the time? And this is now copyright from me. It's Chitragupta. So Chitragupta actually tracks your whole life, what exactly you have done. Who did you meet last night? Where did we eat? And that's what Omni is all about. Omni is actually trying to track one view of customer, one view of stock, and one view of order. Now really to bring that alive in the store, you need to do multiple things. And yes, one of that is the tablet that you do. One of the big experiments that we are currently running is called Magic Mirror. And a lot of people have used Magic Mirror in multiple ways. But that's something that we are currently working on. And customers are happy that their trial room experience gets reduced in terms of timeline, and overall experience of shopping actually improves dramatically. The second one that we are currently working in the store is all about ambience and perfumes in the store. So how can you really have different perfumes in different areas and make the experience while shopping in the store much superior than what it is today. And obviously the tablets will come, the kiosks will come. Mobile POS is something that we have tried right now in this sale. And in fact, in one of the biggest stores of ours, we now have almost 25 mobile POS. And during the current sale, we are actually able to cut down the line at the cash counter by almost 50%. And that's what we are trying to do through bringing some experience to the store. Same brands could be available, but yes, can I add value to that experience within the store? That's what we are trying to work on.
Great, thanks, Govind. Is there anything more that you're doing in terms of really creating, now you've got the customer in the store, you've got the product in the store, and have you been able to combine the customer and the product to be able to transport the customer into a new experience zone?
So Magic Mirror does that, because in a Magic Mirror experiment, that typically a customer who comes into the store tries out maybe 8 articles. With a Magic Mirror, you can actually do 200 combinations of articles between a top and a bottom, a watch and a sunglass, all combinations you can try. And not only that, share it on social media platform, share it with your friends, get comments for you. So really it's experience of shopping along with your friends while the friends are really not there, and really looking at yourself in multiple combinations.
Great, thanks. Latif, you're one of the first in this country to launch an online business, eBay in the earlier form and now eBay India. And when you really look at it, you're a massive technology platform connecting tens of thousands of suppliers with, millions of customers and, customers across the world in some extent. So when we heard that example earlier of the chessboard manufacturer in Amritsar, who happens to be one of the large retailers on let's say Flipkart, then is there a way in which you can also describe how you've managed to create retailers out of individuals? Because there are a lot of housewives and individuals who have become retailers because of your platform, and thereby you've provided greater reach to them. And on the other hand, you've also managed to get customers for products which they otherwise wouldn't find in a store, because otherwise they'll remain within the homes of these individuals. So just describe what are some of the larger technology thoughts that you've used in terms of disconnecting the dots.
Sure. So thank you, Biju, for that question. So as you pointed out, eBay has been at the forefront of e-commerce in India for more than 10 years. And in these 10 years, we now have 65,000 sellers that are selling on eBay. 40,000 of them are selling within India domestically, and 25,000 are selling across the globe. So when I say across the globe, eBay has customers, 162 million buyers in 206 countries. So that's the power of this platform. In India, these 65,000 sellers are spread across 5,000 towns and cities. So that's the coverage that we have been able to reach and connectivity. Now, to your point, eBay is a great platform for entrepreneurs. Just to give you an example, so earlier I gave the example of a seller in Amritsar who's selling to 20 countries across 4 continents from this small location in Amritsar. Now that's the cost of doing business, that's gone down significantly for him. We have leather sellers, out of Dharavi selling across, 16 countries. They tell me that when they get an order, they actually have to open up the atlas to see where the country is and where the buyer is. So that's the connectivity, the world that we are living in today. Now to your question, everybody can come and start selling on eBay. So how are we bringing the experience and how are we bringing, the hygiene factor? So one of the bigger differentiators on eBay is that every seller has detailed seller ratings. So when a buyer, buys from a particular seller, they will come and give feedback. And the seller is incented. They take and they hold, their DSR ratings very religiously. You'll be surprised at the number of calls I get when a seller goes down from being a top-rated seller, because then he starts losing, that trust that buyers have in him. And believe me, the benchmark is so high that, I have had some of the biggest brands in this country who have started selling and have not been able to achieve that status. Whereas the smallest sellers are achieving that by giving a fabulous experience. This seller I'm talking about from Dharavi, he actually, every time he ships a package, he puts a personalized letter in there addressed to the buyer, saying, where is he from, what went into building that product. That kind of personalization you don't see. And that is what technology has been able to achieve. Earlier the customer, the consumer, had to make a choice of what to buy. Now the consumer is empowered so much that they have the choice of who to buy from, where to buy, when to buy. That's what technology has been able to achieve.
What they want to say. But the moment you have two-way communication, then you actually have to figure out to listen to what the customer says. And that can be a double-edged sword. So in some senses, and Kabir, this question is to you, one of the challenges that a lot of us face is in trying to make sure that there is positive word of mouth about our store. We actively try and protect the image of the store and by managing all the communication that happens around it, whether we created it or whether the customer created it. So what are some of the things that you're doing at Lifestyle to be able to actively manage the social image of Lifestyle? So whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on customer review or mouthshut.com, any of these others, where customers have the ability to be able to, digitally influence other customers.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on. Just speak.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear myself. Yeah, I think, going back to what Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala said, that God decides everything. So I think I have the feeling that God has decided that we as a company are going to be the fast tortoise. And we are not going to change as fast, but we'll accommodate change, we'll accept that change is a reality, and we'll do certain things which is in line with the DNA of our organization. So coming to your question, I think what we've done or not done is not sort of actively gone and influence customers to say good things about us. I still feel that consumers buy products for two basic reasons. One is experience, the other is convenience. And the biggest joy is still consuming the product. So if you continue to do those things which you're meant to do in the so-called old world, right, before technology had such a dramatic influence, I feel you'll still get 70 to 80% satisfaction marks from consumers. So sticking to the knitting, sticking to the fundamentals is still the core. It's a middle of the road approach. So finally, the good benefit, the output of all this is that you actually get a lot of positive comments from consumers. Now, I don't think that there is a method to actively influence or manage this. This is a result of what you do, what you're supposed to do. So my belief is that execution focus for the next couple of years should still take primary weight in what an organization does, especially when you've got a very, very strong brick and mortar part to your existence. And then I think the positives of social media, the positives of good communication, what customers say about you will just continue to follow.
Sure. And probably just one last point, which is that how do you make ambassadors out of your complainants? Which is that even those who want to complain on social media, and how do you then kind of capture them and make sure that they then become ambassadors and address that?
Yeah, so there are two solutions to that. One is, of course, it's tactical, right, where you actually reach out to the customer and try and do your best to explain to the customer that what happened was actually a genuine mistake. That's not something that sort of happens regularly. And once you manage that, to do a deep dive analysis as to why it really happened, so that you can actually make some changes at the back end so that you prevent it from happening very, very frequently in the future. So that's one way of sort of dealing with all the pressure that gets mounted when you have a problem on hand.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Habib. Venu, you got this unique position of being the only single brand retailer in the midst of all these multi-brand retailers, if I were to borrow some terminology from the DIPP. So being a single brand retailer where you have complete control of the supply chain right from manufacturing to the actual retail point of sale and the customer and the relationship with the customer, how do you use the power of technology to be able to feed all the information you capture from the customer at the front end all the way back to who manufactures for you or in your factories?
I think as a multi-brand retailer, as you said, and also other factors, as an international retailer, we are present in a number of countries, and we are in different stages in India versus in the UK, where our business is truly multi-channel, omni-channel today. And if I were to draw on some of the comparisons of how we use technology, we have adapted the bricks and clicks model very effectively. And in the UK, about 550 of our stores today really offer the Shop My Way. And Shop My Way is basically where the customer can either order from home or in the store and choose to come back and collect at the store the next day. And over 50% of our orders now are based on Shop My Way. And effectively what that's doing is, one, it's giving the customer the choice of being able to pick up where it's convenient to him or her at the time that it's convenient to them. Secondly, it's also then helping us by bringing them back into the store more often. So I think that's one way by which we are making it much more convenient for the customer, and that's been really effective for us. The other aspect is, of course, I think there are three different areas where technology, or where the whole boom that's happened on the way technology has progressed. One is convenience for the customer in terms of where they buy, how they buy, and what they buy. The second aspect, and more from a retail perspective, is just making that choice of what technology to adapt or not adapt, as the case might be. Because I think today there is a plethora of different technologies that's available, and each of which does different bits. Getting all of them together is quite crucial for every retailer. And the third aspect is the amount of information that's available, both about the customer as well as about their choices, their preferences. And making the customer more empowered to be able to make that choice on your platform is one way that we use that quite effectively. So again, on our own .com site, customers can give product reviews, and that product reviews can then get fed onto their network. Now, also vice versa, we get feedback very, very quickly if they don't like something, and it gives us an opportunity to react to that. Especially in the case products which are fast-moving, quick fashion, being able to react and change is very, very important. And the last bit is using the information, the choices that the customers are making, to be able to offer them things which are more in sync with what they are looking for at that particular point. Because that data is now available to the retailer, to the brand, and being able to use that and offer it back to him. So I think those are some of the ways by which currently we are using the information that's now available and technology that's making it possible.
So do you have a magic mirror concept in your stores?
We don't have a magic mirror. We've let go and do that, and we'll wait for the results from that before we adopt it. But it's interesting how many different companies are offering the equivalent of magic mirror, and everyone claims to be cheaper than what Shoppers Stop paid.
Great. I know we're running a little short on time overall, as you know, from the morning. So what I'd like to do is just throw it open to the audience. A few questions, then we come back again to the panel in case we have any questions short from the audience. So anybody wants to start off first? Just indicate your name, mention your name, and then If you've got the question specific to any of the panelists, then please do mention them by name too.
Let's see there.
Sorry, we have a lady there.
Hi, I'm Nilakshi, and my question to Govind sir would be, it's important to have customer experience and the technologies that you're using, such as Magic Mirror or introducing tablets, digital, platforms and all. How important do you think optimizing retail operations is important? So, say a visual merchandising software, or how important is these operation part to be digitalized? Like, what value would you give to that?
Is it addressed to anybody specifically, Meenakshi?
Govind sir.
I thought she
To
asked.
Govind.
Yeah. So I think what Rakesh and even Kabir mentioned earlier is some of the things are, hygiene. So when a customer is buying a product, they're fundamentally buying the product for the value it offers along with the experience and the convenience. And when you're setting up a store, you actually set it up along with not only assortment, brands, categories, but also the visual merchandising that makes you shop for it. And the visual merchandising enhances the appeal of the assortment and it makes you shop more and more. That's the whole idea. So I think operational excellence is now hygiene. You have to really take it to the next level every time you look at it. And if I look at the journey of Indian retailers, whether it is, we started in 91, completing 25 years, or even those who are older than us, whether it is a Nallis or whether it's a Kumaran or any of them, everyone has improved, everyone has changed over a period of time. But at the core of retail, fundamentally, customers are always trying to buy a product which adds value to them, it enhances their appeal, and the whole experience and convenience gets added up. So it is about the social connect, it is about the emotional connect when a product is bought. So operational excellence, I think, is hygiene.
And you'd mentioned something about visual merchandising. Isn't that also there?
Yeah. So we are incorporating, like similar to the tablets that are there in every brand presentation, can you incorporate tablets or visual aids, whether it is video screens. So we are experimenting right now with large amount of video screens in a few stores, which can further enhance appeal. And in fact, if Levi's is being sold in a particular shop-in-shop, I can actually run a Levi's ad in that particular shop-in-shop on the video. I can also play their editorial content or digital content in that area, which again can enhance the whole appeal of the brand and can further add value of information to customer. It is not only about transaction, but can I update them on the product? Can I update them about exactly what the point was? Where is the source of that product? What has gone behind it? What has gone behind in terms of tailoring it or sourcing it? All that information can also enhance the entire appeal. Yeah.
Just to add to it, I think there are technologies available today where you can, when you're passing by a store and you look at the window, you can actually use your mobile phone to be able to scan a barcode. If you've got the app downloaded, you can look at what those dresses would look on you in the app itself. So there are ways in which you can create interactivity between what is normally a static window and you as a customer. So there are things that can happen. Sorry, there's another lady there who would ask a question, and then we'd come to you after that.
Hi, my name is Amita. My question is to Mr. J. Suresh.
Mr. Suresh, unfortunately, is not here. But is it specific to them, to retail? We can ask Kabir also, if it's specific to department store retail.
Sorry about that. So actually it was specific to the entrance of foreign brands that actually Arvind is supporting into India. So I don't know if it's still, is it still a question?
So what is your
so
question?
The entrance of the global brands, the foreign brands into India, which actually Arvind Brands is sort of supporting and the partnering with the global brands, such as the Gap and Children's Place and all those.
So what is the specific question?
So the question is that is there an expectation from these brands on how to access the market in India, whether that should be online, offline, through the same partner, or do they prefer to just go off, the brick and mortar model with somebody like an Arvind Brands or the other such franchise partners, and go online with the usual Amazon and Flipkart and so on?
Perfect. I think Rakesh can take it because he also deals in a lot of foreign brands.
I think typically when you see a large foreign brand enter with a partnership with an Indian conglomerate, or in let's say case like an Arvind or with a Future Group, it would be an exclusive partnership which would cover all channels of retail. You know, you typically would not divide because it's also about maintaining the brand hygiene in the country, and it's a lot more easier to do that. I think there have been some brands in the past which have tried to divide it, and it typically doesn't work very easily. So I would assume the fact that going forward, you know, either you'll see the brands come on their own in India as a subsidiary, and we are seeing a few of them already come in, or they will come with some exclusive partnerships itself.
Great. Can we get the mic here to the gentleman in the first row?
Hi, I'm Anand Sareka. We have two brands, YOLO and Rishte Bags. My question is to the Shoppers Stops and Lifestyle representative. From the supply side, how could, like, for us it is easy to get listed on online websites and start selling immediately. But to enter your stores, what technology can we use so that you're not just for the big brands? How can a startup or a new brand which launches can enter your stores and start selling? And what is the technology we can use and how to bridge that gap?
I don't think that's a technology-related question, but nevertheless, we'll accept it.
We could have a technology for that as well. Why not a technology for that? Like, why do we need to visit their offices, show samples? Why not create a technology wherein these brick and mortar stores also adopt a technology to select suppliers?
Yeah,
Or brands, yes.
sure. Yeah, sure.
Govind?
Still feel that there are some areas where technology cannot come to your rescue, and you have to do a few things which are done the good old world way. So I feel that there is no formula as to how a brand can enter one of our formats. I think it's based on need and opportunity. The one limitation that our stores have is that our spaces cannot expand beyond the four walls of our stores. So as consumers are evolving and as we are evolving, we identify some change in trends. We feel that some categories could do better than they've done in the past. So if you're a first mover, if you're amongst the first to actually identify that change, then you could you have a higher chance of sort of getting in. Whereas if it's a category which is optimally serviced, very well serviced, given the positioning of the formats and the brands that we run, the chances of getting in become lower. So I still feel that there is no signed unto death kind of sort of decision that retailers take, that we will partner only with the people that we've signed a decade ago. I think you have to just make sure that you build your brand, you stay focused, you create a great supply chain, do all the fundamental things which actually make the ultimate difference, and finally you can always leverage technology when the timing is right.
Sure.
Can we meet after this session to understand your brand? Number one. And number two is, if you have differential, I think your brand will work always. So if you have a differential, I think the time has come that retailers will have to start chasing brands rather than brands chasing retailers, because we are looking for that different spark which can make an impact on the customer. And yes, let's meet after this session.
Good.
And you can always start selling on eBay. We have no issues.
Thank you.
Hi.
Next gentleman there.
Hi,
You have a mic in your hands? Oh, sorry, you've got the mic in your hands. So please pass it later there. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
To all the leadership is that how you ensure that the technology adopted by you people is being the best selected in the industry, how you actually arrives on a decision that the technology you are selecting to promote the sales, more specifically like as Sir said that in the Shoppers Stop they are actually adopting some digital signage solutions and is the best in the industry. Are the people that are responsible to take decision in your company are competent enough to take that? How you ensure that?
How do you ensure what actually? You're saying that what is the process of decision making when you select new technology?
Yeah.
Is that what your question is?
Yes, that
Okay,
process, the
perfect.
process as well as how capable the people who are taking the decision at the various levels are competitive and understand the technology. How
Correct.
you ensure that?
The people who normally take the decision think they're capable. You can have another view on that anyway. So go ahead. So go with you.
Okay, so to answer two things, I think you need to be brave all the time. I think the biggest, I think what I heard from Rakesh, and I 100% agree on that, Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala in the morning, that change is apparent, change is in midst of us. If we don't accept change, nothing is going to happen. So I think majority of us, all of us retailers who have spent 25 years in Shoppers, maybe more than 50 years for the lifestyle group per se, more than 30 years plus for the future group per se. I think we have all gone through various phases of change. We have seen things change outside. Sometimes we have reacted fast, sometimes we have reacted slowly. But I think taking the decision that technology is important is a brave decision, number one. And taking the decision on the specific technology that you pick up, as technologies keep on changing, companies get acquired. So for example, Hybris is acquired by SAP, somebody else is acquired by somebody else, and that company itself discontinues the current technology, moves into something else, is an ongoing challenge. So we are retailers first and not technologists. And what you see the other marketplaces, so-called marketplaces, they're technologists who are trying to become retailers. So I think this is a competition that is going on, which is not an online, offline, but I think a retail versus technology competition. But at the end of the day, I think these worlds are merging together, they're coming together. And I think the best decision is to keep on taking decisions and correcting them while you are going on. Because nobody died because of experimentation, right? Experimentation is on, you keep on experimenting, you try some technologies, fail fast, learn new, and get on into the new one.
Sahil, would you want to add something?
Yeah, actually I have a question for brick and mortar retailers. Very pertinent to what you just said is that e-tailers today, as per your opinion, are technologists trying to be retailers. And one of the challenges for brick and mortar retailers is adopting technology. So I think on the West, we have some lessons to learn is the larger retailers that pursued the hybrid model. They succeeded fairly well. BestBuy.com, just in time, I think they did that. Walmart.com. I think they're successfully able to encompass both worlds. But I think, is it that brick and mortar retailers like yourselves feel that also enabling a delivery model where customers can, so you can add on more brands? One of the questions that gentleman asked is how they can get on Shoppers Stop or get on Landmark Group without having to deal with a merchandiser or a buyer. Technology, say if you have a website today, also a website. I'm not saying replace your brick and mortar. If you also have a website, you can actually add on more brands, and those can be, probably online exclusives. But you have, I think you have more than enough customers, as you mentioned, who come into your stores for convenience and experience, but they also like the brand. Shoppers Stop, Landmark, these are legendary brands that people like and they're used to. How would it be disadvantageous for you to accelerate the hybrid model? I think Tata is attempting this on a very large scale called the Unistore. So is there any particular reason why you would be slow to adopt that and takes too much time to also add on a .com version or an application to your brick and mortar?
Yeah, I can tell you that, please understand that, and I think the entire morning session went in trying to discuss the profitability around this, the cost of unit cost of doing business. And none of us here are actually funded by FDI. We are funded by money within India.
Not by father-in-laws.
And neither do we have father-in-laws who can keep pumping in enough money. So the issue for us, all of us, is very simple. We believe the fact that, in fact, I think all of us out here are committed to investment in technology, different times, different phases of life. Some are in beta stage, some have gone live, and we'll keep doing it. We are never going to be, I don't think so anybody out here wants to be a technology company. We want to be consumer companies. We want to be a retailer. Retailer's job is only to service the end consumer. We look at partnering with technology providers. We never try to buy the best technology. We buy technology which is relevant to our business. That is precisely what we will keep doing. I think the whole art of retail is not about creating technology platform. It's about thinking about the customer, thinking about the assortment that he needs to buy, thinking about our positioning, and try and offer an assortment which is relevant to our positioning. Now, yes, there will be hundreds of, so we are not, I don't believe that all of us really want to be marketplaces which would end up selling products from 99 rupees to 1 lakh rupees. We have to be relevant to the brands that we are becoming. Right? So that is where we are. So there is no rush, there is no hurry. I think there is an investment happening. There is an existing set of customers which are walking into our stores. That number is only increasing. We will first, our objective is to fulfill their needs in a better manner than what we are doing today, become more excellent out there. If technology can enable that, we will do that first. And if there is a model which says marketplace makes money and still lives up to the brand's reputation, I'm sure all of us will adopt that also.
Great. Thanks, Rakesh. Last question.
Hello.
Sorry, there's a gentleman behind who raised his hand earlier. This is the last question, unfortunately.
Hi, Biju. Kapil Malhotra here, a very interesting session. My question is, nowadays the consumer, if you look at their buying decision-making behavior, they would usually do an online check and then maybe go to an offline store. What really differentiates the conversion is the talent on the floor, which is your front sales executive, who basically understands the customer, understands the product, and gives the right information. For the brick and mortar operators, my question is, how do you ensure that there's a consistent experience for each and every customer, and that the salesperson understands the customer's demand and need, and basically what he's looking for shopping? How do you use any technology behind it, or?
Anybody specific who wants to answer that? Kavi?
I'll take that one. I think the key there is training and development to make sure that all the staff, each of your staff, are trained on the product, know about the product. There is so much of information available on the product today online. It's making sure that your teams are equally equipped to be able to offer advice to the customer over and above what they already know. So to that extent, investment into training and into helping, improving the knowledge of each of the sales advisors and so everyone else in the store is what will lead to that.
Yeah. So there are various other things, there is a whole art of recognizing the customer and making sure that the experience is actually personalized for the customer. Technology is used there, as Venu said, using, technology to be able to develop a training for the people on the floor, to be able to give them access to information. Because as much information is available to a customer, is today also has to be provided to the person in the store. Or the person in the store will obviously appear ignorant in front of the customer. And especially when it comes to technology products like electronics, etc., the customer is normally more knowledgeable than the person on the floor. So there are various ways in which people have tried to use technology to be able to create a potent force as far as the frontline salesperson is concerned, so that they're able to create an enriching experience for the customer. Thanks. Good. So I think we're running out of time, otherwise all of you will be deprived of half an hour of your lunch break. So thank you very much to my panelists for being able to, in this short time, delve on different aspects of the whole subject of connected retail and the way it can actually change our lives, even if we are brick and mortar retailers. And also to the audience for being patient and listening to them and asking sensible questions at the end. So thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much.